وكذلك أوحينا إليك روحا من أمرنا ما كنت تدري ما الكتاب ولا الإيمان ولكن جعلناه نورا نهدي به من نشاء من عبادنا وإنك لتهدي إلى صراط مستقيم صراط الله الذي له ما في السماوات وما في الأرض ألا إلى الله تصير الأمور.
What do you want? How do you do this? How do you do that? Now we need to get into what are the rights of the wife? What are the rights of the husband? Are there mutual rights? Are there mutual lefts in some relationships? And how do you, how do you know what your wife's right? How do you know what your right is? How do we distinguish between these?
One of the most beautiful things of the Quran that it provides the meaning in the most comprehensive manner. Like, for example, in a very simple phrase, in a simple ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَهُنَّ مِثْلُ الَّذِي عَلَيْهِنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ, which means for them, for women, rights as regards living expenses, similar to those of their husbands over them, as regards obedience and respect, in a reasonable manner, and as much as you can afford it, whether you are the husband or the wife. Okay? So the ayah shows that there are rights for both and duties on both. The more the rights increase of the man, that also means the rights of the woman would increase as well.
I was thinking the other way. One goes up and one goes down, and then it goes the other way.
So more rights on that side means more rights on that side, and similarly duties and vice versa.
So what's the rights between the woman right now? Can you give us some like that?
Before that, Abdul Rahman was asking me about, since this ayah indicates that there are rights on both, for both, and duties on both, so why then do we give women half the share of a man in the inheritance?
You mean dowry or?
No, when it comes to inheritance. Okay? And this is pretty much related to the subject. Because when you understand that
woman gets half,
the spending, the responsibility of providing and spending is due upon the man.
Oh, yes.
While the woman takes her share of inheritance, takes her dowry, takes her gifts, and it's totally hers. She's not responsible for any of that, and that keeps balance. A man is responsible for taking care of his mother, sister, daughter, and wife, especially whenever his mother and sister are poor or in need. While a woman is only in charge for herself, and whatever position she has, it's all hers. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the most wise, placed it this way, or this system, because He knows the needs versus, what they get.
To do a balance. Sort of
if your wife inherited some cash, because she can give it up to the family, though, right? She can say, well, then let's go buy a new refrigerator with this money or something like that, and there's no...
Well, if she wants to spend that money, like, first of all, talking about the dowry, for instance, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala stated that, وَآتُوا النِّسَاءَ صَدُقَاتِهِنَّ نِحْلَةً فَإِن طِبْنَ لَكُمْ عَنْ شَيْءٍ مِّنْهُ نَفْسًا فَكُلُوهُ هَنِيئًا مَرِيئًا. This ayah actually answers your question. And it is due upon men to give the mahr, the dowry, to a nisa, to women, with good heart. But if your wife remits any part of the dowry with good heart and pleasure, and she gives it to you, then فَقُلُوهُ هَنِيئًا مَرِيئًا. Take it and you may spend it without fear of any harm, because now it has been made lawful for you, but only with one condition. If she gives that part to you willingly, if she spends willingly, without being forced, without being blackmailed, that you either do this or I will divorce you, you know. So in this case, or for positions and wealth, if she does that willingly, she receives a charity for that, but she does not have to, because the spending is totally due upon
The man.
the man.
So dowry, in a sense, is a present. It's not like a prize of a woman. Or because I see a lot of people, they put a high price for their daughter to get married. Some
Like
are
they're
to
selling
some
it.
extent. So
I know a brother who put $20,000.
It's for dowry.
That's the dowry for his daughter.
That is the maximum you heard of?
so is there a limitation?
Most I've heard of, yeah, that's a lot of cash.
First of all, the dowry is not a price for the bride. Never.
Never ever.
The dowry is a gift, but it is mandatory upon the husband to pay to the wife. It's mandatory because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mandated that on him. And it's never a price. Why? Let's say that the person got married and they concluded a marriage contract. But they did not get to move in together. They never had any sexual relationship. And he divorced her. And they were separated. What do you do with the dowry? In this case, she still keeps 1/2 of the dowry. So the dowry was never a price because the business contract was not fulfilled, but still she keeps 1/2 as a compensation for, you know, the emotional stress of being married almost, then all of a sudden for a reason or another that they broke out. Second, if a person marries, then he dies before having his wife move in.
Consummate, yeah.
Yes.
Before he consummate.
No. So in this case, she keeps the entire dowry. And if people get married without naming a dowry, the dowry is still due. And we look at one who's similar to her, her sisters, her cousins, or somebody who in the same age and the same qualities, and we see how much dowry she received when she was married. And then the same amount will be due on the husband to pay, even though they do not agree to any dowry, they did not pay. Keeping in mind that many people, Ahmed, and I hope that you're not one of them, at the time of marriage, they exaggerate. They say, well, the dowry is $1 million. And they say what? I will pay $1 up front and the rest is deferred.
And the rest is a deferred dowry.
Assuming that the deferred dowry is neglected. No. The deferred dowry is a debt in your neck, which you have to pay.
So if you die,
once
you're
you're
held out from
capable to
going
pay.
Jannah.
Exactly. Because if the husband dies at any time before dividing the inheritance, we take the portion of the deferred amount of the dowry and we pay it to the wife. Because that's her right. Many people do not know this fact. They ignore it. This is a debt which should be paid.
What if you do something like, it's almost like deferred, but you say, it's like an insurance policy almost. You say, okay, I'll give you this for your dowry, but if we're ever divorced, I'll give you this much too. You know what I mean? So you say you give us something small up front, like I'll give you $100 now, and if we're ever divorced, if I ever divorce you, then I'll have to give you this much upon divorce. Is that?
Now this is the case where people confuse it with the previous one, which is the deferred dowry. In this case, it's permissible. If they say that if you ever divorce my daughter, this is how much penalty you pay. I call it penalty. It's not a deferred dowry. Okay? No. And in this case, if he does divorce her, then he has to pay that much. We have to keep in mind that who receives the dowry, who takes it and possesses it?
The wife.
Is the girl, the bride.
It is the bride. Right. Not her father, not her family, nor the husband. Even to give the husband a part of it or to remit a part of it, it has to be with a good heart.
Willingly from her.
Exactly. Not to manipulate, not to force, not to, willingly. And that's the only way that whatever you will take from her will be halal, or otherwise it will be haram, even though it was you who paid that much.
Well, this is I have a problem here. I have my relative who's from India. And this we're talking about vice versa. You see, in India, it's common that the woman pays a dowry to get a man because if you pay high dowry, for example, the man is a doctor, he's going to pay high dowry because he's a doctor.
This is amazing.
Yes. But before you answer that, I married Singapore. I'm not Indian. So this is happening. So people
you had to
run
pay.
away.
You didn't get anything.
The girls gave the dowry
Okay.
to the man. So what do you have to say about that?
I heard Ismail had a comment on that.
Yeah, man, I'm going to go to India and get married. I need some money.
That's why I said that we have to keep away from mixing up and confusing the issues, what's cultural and what's religious. The dowry is due on the man, not the woman, not her family. Also, in some Muslim societies, that they put a condition that the dowry is, I pay the dowry, but meanwhile I will take it back. How? You will have to buy this and that with it. In this case, I say, if it is not willingly and with a good heart from the wife, then this is haram.
This is stealing.
Because when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلِلرِّجَالِ عَلَيْهِنَّ دَرَجَةً, and men excel women with a degree. That degree is the degree of
Paying.
spending and paying. Right?
No going Dutch in Islam.
Exactly. So in this case, spending is due upon the man. The mahr is due upon the man. And it is never a price. And that's why when people exaggerate, sometimes we have to be fair. If you're a multimillionaire, and if you're able to pay, if you're, for instance, Bill Gates, and you want to pay as much as you want to pay, that's fine. That's approved. There is no like a roof for it.
There's no ceiling or...
No.
There's no ceiling and there's no basement.
And there is no basement. The Prophet ﷺ said to that man who didn't have anything, look for even an iron ring, which will not be worn, but she can sell it and use its price. However, he couldn't find anything. And teaching her the Quran was an adequate dowry. But if a person wants to pay as much as millions, it's fine. If he's capable to do so. But should not be a bargain as how much will you pay. Have somebody else who is offering more. Now in this case, I can say, yes, you have all the right to consider the mahr as a price.
It's like in Denver, where I'm from, we have this thing called the stock show, And what it is they have like, here's a cow. And then they got a guy and he goes, I got 5, I got 5, I got 10, I got 10, I got 5, I got 10, I got 20, I got 20, I got 30, I got 40, I got 50, 50, 70, 99. And that's what it's like sometimes with the people. They bring their daughter out and they have a bunch of men. And
it's auction.
I got 100, yeah. I got 100, I got 20, I got 20,000, and they're auctioning out their daughter like she's a piece of meat.
Such a person will be dishonoring and disgracing his daughter. We have to keep in mind that the dowry is not a price. The dowry is not a price.
It's an auction too.
That's what it seems like, man. It seems like an auction. It seems like people are just trying to sell their daughter.
Sayyidah Aisha, may Allah be pleased with her, said that the most blessed marriage is the one which costs less, which have the least expenses. This is the most blessed. And it doesn't mean that if you're rich enough to pay and to prepare a palace, that your marriage will not be blessed. But it means we should not burden the grooms and those who are asking for my daughter's hand with requests which will make them turn away.
I'm going to go check on dinner, see how far off it is, get some food here for us.
Talking about nafaqa, please.
No junk food, brother.
Imagine, for each time you say Subhanallah, that's one hasanah. And as the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam stated in one hadith, Al-hasanatu bi'ashri amthaliha. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in one hadith said, وَجُعِلَتْ قُرَّةُ عَيْنِي فِي الصَّلَاةِ, that the peace of my eye and the comfort of my mind is been put in the position of salah. When the person is focusing heart and mind in his salah, in what Allah commanded him to recite and their meanings, Allah would forgive him his sins. And in another narration, إِلَّا وَجَبَتْ لَهُ الْجَنَّةِ. The Prophet ﷺ once was asked, one of his companions said, Ya Rasulullah, what are the rights of one's wife upon him? So the Prophet ﷺ said, أَن تُطْعِمَهَا إِذَا طَعِمْتَ, is to feed her whenever you eat. وَأَن تَكْسُوَهَا إِذَا كَسَوْتَ, and to clothe her whenever you buy clothes for yourself. وألا تضرب الوجه ولا تقبح. And not to slap her on the face, nor insult her, and humiliate her. ولا تهجر إلا في البيت. And do not abandon her except at home. I mean, if there is a conflict, it should be only at home, within your household. It should not be displayed outside and you complain to people about it.
Exactly.
And show people that you're upset with your wife.
I'm so
Because
mad
this
at
is
my
humiliating.
wife.
Yeah.
Privacy.
Yes. So from there we understand that the second right after the dowry is spending. It's totally the responsibility of the man, the real man, whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him that degree of responsibility of spending out of his means on his wife, on his household. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam once said that the best charity is the one which is given while you're rich. And the best charity at all is the one which you give to your family members. Is to spend on those who are under your guardianship. So feeding your wife, your children, that's also an act of worship. He says, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, وَاللُّقْمَةُ تَضَعُهَا فِي زَوْجَتِكَ صَدَقَةً. And when you feed your wife, when you put a bite of food in her mouth, that's a charity. You know?
Romantic charity.
And
Yeah,
too many questions. Go ahead.
What about the vice versa? You see, we know that men are supposed to handle the household's affair, nafka and things like that. We have some men who works and he doesn't have time. So when he gets his salary, he gives all to his wife. Say, okay, you run the household. And he just, is that permissible?
That's absolutely permissible. We call a housewife a house engineer because she's supposed to manage and engineer her house. As a matter of fact, the Prophet ﷺ admired the women of his tribe from Quraysh for this quality. He says that the best of women of those who ride on the back of the camels, the women of Quraysh, because they take good care of their children and they safeguard the positions and the wealth of their husbands. They manage it properly without being wasteful. So if a person can really assign his wife and give her this great assignment to take care of, spending and so on, and entrust her, that would be great. Keeping in mind that the Prophet ﷺ once was asked, he said, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, that dinarun anfaqtahu fi sabilillah, that if there is a dollar or dinar, you spend it for the path of Allah. And a dollar, you spend it in freeing a slave neck. And a dollar, you give it in a charity to a miskin or a person who's in need. And a dollar that you spend it upon your family. The best of all is the one which you spend it on your family.
Yeah.
So this is such a good news.
And this is the best news, especially if people have a family.
Yes.
He's like, that's sadaqah kabir.
There's another kind of person that I know where he gave good sadaqah on outside, but in his house he just want to live life like a zuhud, low down, but he gave more sadaqah. If his wife agree with that, would that be considered?
If his wife agrees, fine, but if the man is kind of tight, or we call him miser, in this case we had an incident where, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, كِسْوَتُهُنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ, like for when he said that whenever you receive a child, وَلِلْمَوْلُودِ لَهُ رِزْقُهُنَّ وَكِسْوَتُهُنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ, and for the person who receives the child, the father, is to provide them and to give them the clothes on reasonable basis. But when a person is cheap, Hind bint Utbah, may Allah be pleased with her, came to the Prophet ﷺ and she was so open. And she said, Ya Rasulullah, that inna zawji rajulun shahih. My husband is kind of,
kind of cheap.
kind of cheap, okay. You want to press it this way. Is it okay to take out of his money without his knowledge? So the Prophet ﷺ said, well, take what suffices you and your children or on reasonable basis. It's not for granted, the privilege of taking without his knowledge. No. So a person has to be generous with his family, knowing that the best charity is the one which you give to your family, is the one which you give to your wife, is the money which you spend on your children. And meanwhile, not to be wasteful. Also, Ismail were concerned about if a person is married to a wealthy woman and she wants to pitch in and participate in taking care of the expenses and so on. For instance, he can barely afford a one-bedroom apartment and she wants to move into a bigger house. And she has the means and he does not have. Can she do that? Well, she may do that as long as she does it with good heart. She's not being forced to do it. As a matter of fact, if the husband is eligible for the zakah, and the wife is one of those who paid zakah because she has a great wealth, has the nisab, in this case, the husband is eligible to take the zakah from his wife. It happened once when the Prophet ﷺ, remember when he said to women, he addressed them and encouraged them to donate generously. So one of them, Zainab, may Allah be pleased with her, the wife of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, radiyallahu anhu arda, came home and she wanted to give that charity to her husband. He was so poor. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, may Allah be pleased with him. Even though the Prophet ﷺ said about him that his foot, his leg, is heavier than the mountain of Uhud before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the Day of Judgment. Because Abdullah ibn Mas'ud was known as a mount of knowledge. But he was so poor. So his wife asked him if she can give him, the charity and his children. He said, why don't you ask the Prophet ﷺ? She said, you ask him. He said, no, you ask him. So she went to ask the Prophet ﷺ if it was permissible to pay the charity to her husband. On the way, she found another lady from Al-Ansar woman. She had the same question. Bilal was by the door, so they asked Bilal to inquire from the Prophet ﷺ as if it is permissible to give the charity to their husbands, and not to inform the Prophet ﷺ about the identities of the questioners, not to embarrass their husbands. So Bilal entered upon the Prophet ﷺ and asked him their su'al, their question. So the Prophet ﷺ asked him, who's asking? He said, a lady from Al-Ansar and Zainab. The Prophet ﷺ asked again, which Zainab? Which is Zayanib? There are too many.
Yes, too many.
We've been talking about Zainab bint Yazid, and
Yes.
and this is Zainab Abdullah's wife. He said, which Zainab? He said, Abdullah ibn Mas'ud's wife. He said, go ahead and tell her that if you give the charity to your husband, it will be, the reward will be doubled. A reward for giving a charity and a reward for taking care of your kinship. So imagine giving the charity to your family members, you receive double the reward. And it was permissible for a woman, and it is permissible for a woman to pay her zakat dues to her husband if he is eligible. That means it's not obligatory on her to take care of any expenses or to pay anything to her husband or to take care of anything at home in respect of buying and, furnishing or anything.
I think the kids are shaking the birdcage again.
And Shaykh, I just had a question. What's your opinion about these brothers, some brothers that, because the fact that their wives are richer than them or have more money than them, they abuse that fact and they abuse the love that the wife has for them to take
that money?
Take that money.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put the term and the condition. فَإِن طِبْنَا لَكُمْ عَنْ شَيْءٍ مِّنْهُ نَفْسًا. If they give that to you out of good heart, with pleasure, it's halal. But if you manipulate and, take advantage of her wealth, that's between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's why the next right is...
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems kind of funny to me that a right would have to be mentioned that you can't punch your wife in the face.
No, it's not strange. It's the right thing.
It's happening, yeah.
Not to harm your wife. And harming here, I'm not talking about, physical harm, beating. I'm talking about both, physical and moral harm. Some people, they're smiling and happy whenever they're outside. And when we walk home, they have the frown face.
Yeah.
A lot of people these days.
And their words are like
That's
a knife.
forbidden.
Yeah, the words are like a knife. Yeah, I think
That
actually more
is
painful
forbidden.
That's painful, yeah.
لا ضرر ولا ضرار. And treat your wife the way you like her to treat you with. That's how you should treat your wife.
The golden rule.
And he says, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, وَلَا تَضْرِبِ الْوَجْهَ وَلَا تُقَبِّحْ. Even if there is abandoning or you turn away from her in bed as a way of punishment, for a mistake or a fault, that should not be displayed before others outside. It should be kept between you and her.
No. So the thing about that, which I think is important to bring up, is the physical aspect of beating your wife is something that is culturally attached to Muslims. Not culturally attached, but it's stereotypically attached to Muslims.
No.
That Muslim men go around beating and oppressing their wives. No. But it's clear through the text, through the nusus of Islam, that this is completely forbidden in Islam to beat your wife, to talk sharply with her, to mentally abuse her, to physically abuse her. These things are not allowed in Islam.
Ismail, inshallah, when the time allows us, we'll talk about the etiquette of educating and disciplining your wife, including handling the text which says that وَضْرِبُهُنَّ and beat, which kind of beating and so on. But we're trying to attract Abdul Rahman to get married, not to...
No, you want to let him run away. No, he doesn't want to marry.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala stated that even if conflicts worse come to worse, to divorce. وَإِذَا طَلَّقْتُمُ النِّسَاءَ فَبَلَغْنَ أَجَلَهُنَّ فَأَمْسِكُوهُنَّ بِمَعْرُوفٍ أَوْ سَرِّحُوهُنَّ بِمَعْرُوفٍ. If you divorce them and they reach the end of their period of waiting time, the iddah, so you either hold them back on reasonable basis, if you want to return your wife to your custody, during the reversible divorce, or let them go on reasonable basis. Because actually before Islam, a person would abuse this privilege which was given to the man, the divorce and the reversible divorce and the iddah, so that he would divorce his wife and would wait until the iddah is almost over, then he would hold her back, call her back, and so forth, just to keep her being married
between
and unmarried
and divorce.
Meanwhile.
It's like hanging.
Yes. Anyway, we're running out of time. I gotta go, and inshallah, hopefully next time we'll cover all of that. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك.